If you're here to rest, welcome. Let the world outside slow to a whisper. And if this letter brings you comfort, we'd be honored if you returned, perhaps subscribed, or simply closed your eyes and stayed a while. Somewhere in a quieter corner of London, the air still carries the scent of smoke and lavender soap. Old stone walls wear their cracks like badges of time, and in the hush of the evening, a story unfolds, not loudly, but gently. He was never the kind to draw attention. Not a soldier, not a statesman. Just a man in a cap and coat, peddling through the dusted streets, a leather satchel at his side, and a bicycle that rattled slightly on turns. The day begins in faint light. London awakens slowly after another night of distant thunder. A thin haze lingers above the streets, smoke, dust, and the promise of dawn smoothing over last night's shadows. In a narrow terrace off Watling Street, windows remain shuttered, blackout curtains still drawn. No streetlights guide the way. The silence is only broken by the soft clanking of a bicycle bell. A lone postman emerges, cap low, satchel strapped over a worn coat. His breath hovers in the chill. He pauses at the curb, eyes tracing the ragged outline of St. Paul's Cathedral, its dome looming through the smoke, a steadfast sentinel amidst ruins. He checks his list. Buildings stand silent. Some are missing doors. Others were scarred, blown windows staring blankly into the morning. Yet life is already stirring. From a flat above, an elderly woman descends the stairs carrying a faded tin of biscuits. Across the street, a child tugs at a mother's coat as they head for school. Those schoolrooms are often shelter turned classroom these days. In every corner, there's quiet purpose. A warden in a dark coat peering down a side street. Black masked faces hurrying toward a tube station. Londoners sleeping under arches if nightfall came too soon. The postman moves on. Each house receives its delivery. Letters bound with string, parcels wrapped in brown paper, telegrams edged in black. Not just correspondence, carriers of peace, reminders of distant lives. He stops at a street corner where rubble still lies, remnants of incendiary bombs dropped 3 nights ago. A flower, bold and bright, rises through the stones. A small rebellion. He lifts a letter addressed to Mrs. Parker, Rear Shelter, Chester Terrace. It's a perfect loaf of comfort, sent from her son abroad. He tucks it beneath the latch, then straightens, breathing in the brisk air. Sirens will come again tonight, but for now he continues. Midday sun filters through haze, a quiet brightness above war-scarred rooftops. The city pulses in whispers, footsteps on pavement, distant clatter of mill wheels, and faint melodies emerging from open windows. In a basement shelter beneath St. Martin in the Fields, a group gathers. A battered piano stands in a corner, its cover lifted, keys like exposed teeth. An elderly musician settles gently on the stool, hands trembling. He begins to play Chopin's Nocturne. Each note drifts into the vaulted ceiling, weaving comfort into the concrete walls of the shelter. Children hush their chatter. Mothers pause over tins of stew. Even the warden leans on a faded satchel, eyes closed. For a few minutes, London breathes together in shared tenderness. Above ground, the postman continues his route. At a small bookshop on Charing Cross Road, he leaves a letter in the mailbox, a message from a wife to her husband in the RAF. The bookseller, a quiet man in sweater and spectacles, nods in gratitude. He glances at the stack of donated paperbacks labeled, "Take one, return one." Books travel like letters, stories passing gently from hand to hand. Further on, a bombed-out chapel stands still amid rubble. Its stained glass windows shattered, but the wooden pews remain. A vicar kneels at the altar, hands clasped. She murmurs prayers into the ashes, her voice small, unwavering. The postman slips a note into a knothole in the altar's wood, a thank you from families who relied on worship for solace. Each delivery carries more than words. It carries connection. Amidst uncertainty, these small gestures cast long shadows of hope. Twilight descends in gentle layers of lavender and ash. The city exhales as lamps flicker beneath blackout screens. London hovers between war and wonder. Broken rooftops await repair, but hearts warm with small acts of kindness. The postman returns along a canal path beside Regent Park. The water holds soft echoes of lantern light. A single swan drifts through reflections of golden halos. He pauses to watch, clutching another letter. It is addressed simply, "To the girl who waits." He imagines a solitary figure by candlelight, tracing each word as though it were a lifeline. Nearby, a community center bustles, a knitting circle of women crafting mittens destined for evacuee children. Spools of wool in muted pastels roll across tables. Laughter flickers in corners, subdued yet sincere. A volunteer carefully seals an envelope containing photographs of smiling schoolchildren, tucking it into the hands of another postman. By the canal's edge, the postman sets down a parcel, wrapped in brown paper and tied with string, an unexpected delivery of slippers and warm socks. A mother peers from a row house doorway. Her eyes lift as she recognizes the gesture. She gives the faintest of nods. No words exchanged, no urgency, just quiet acknowledgement. Along narrow alleyways, a street organ grinds out a hopeful jig. A man in a battered hat winds its handle, pausing between tunes to listen for applause. Children cluster outside, eyes bright beneath faded coats. The postman settles a few letters inside the organ's basket, notes addressed to evacuees, names unknown. Before dusk ends, he stands on a stoop, pockets empty except for a single flyer, an invitation to Sunday services for all, whatever their faith. He tucks it behind a doorframe. The world here remains uncertain, but for a moment, hope is tangible in small connections.
Midnight in London holds a stillness unlike any other. Storm clouds drift in low, distant thunder muted by night's embrace. Underground, a hush envelopes the tube shelter beneath Chancery Lane. Rows of bunks line the platform's edges, soft lamplight casting long shadows on tiled walls. Tonight, nearly 150,000 souls sleep below ground. Families, singles, children, huddled under blankets and whispers. A young mother cradles her infant in a borrowed shawl. Nearby, a teenager sketches her evacuated brother's face on the back of ration coupons, the pencil strokes gentle yet alive. Volunteers navigate between rows, offering hot tea and stale bread. They carry canisters of disinfectant and foldable tables bearing paper and pencils, enabling mothers to write letters home, even as the roar of above-ground sirens rumbles on, distant but real. A warden in a peaked cap stands quietly in the archway. He checks the list of names pinned to a board, each one a story, each one a waiting promise. He reads from a ledger in a hushed tone. Evacuees bound for Tunbridge Wells, please queue this side. Hope flickers in the half-lit crowd as they rise, brief acknowledgement of connection. A group gathers at an Ensa concert, a small stage beside the rattling train tracks. A singer, dressed in a crimson coat, performs a lullaby of old London. Home, home where the heart is. The first notes drift and soften the night. Bathers dressed in coats and scarves lean closer. Some voices join momentarily before falling silent again, listening, waiting. A boy, no more than 10, yawns in a bunk. He opens a notebook and writes a single sentence. "Mother, I miss your supper." He folds the page carefully into an envelope addressed to Maidavale. Elsewhere, thoughts drift. A cornet player sits at the edge of a bunk, quiet as a breeze. He lifts the brass instrument gently, unseals a letter from a lover, scrawled in deep blue ink, dotted with tears he never notices until he breathes. He finger taps the words before slipping them into his breast pocket. The music of connection ahead, waiting above ground. Soon, an all clear will signal the end of this suspended world. Until then, London sleeps together, in gentle solidarity, hundreds of hearts pulsing softly in the darkness.
Morning arrives, not with brilliance, but with a low golden hush. The sky above London is streaked in ash and rose, colours born from soot and sunrise, tangled together like threads in a forgotten tapestry. In Holborn, men sweep the pavements with broad brooms, brushing away the remnants of shattered roof tiles and curled fragments of paper. A tea cart clatters over cobblestones, its steam rising like a signal of ordinary life resuming. The postman walks slowly now. His satchel is lighter, almost empty.
He passes a florist tapping a window that lost its glass in the night. Inside, daffodils are still upright in their buckets, resilient as anything in uniform. A few petals scatter onto the pavement. No one sweeps those away. Near the corner of Southampton Row, an elderly man pushes a pram, not for a child, but filled with salvaged books, candlesticks, and a framed photograph wrapped in cloth. He pauses beside a boarded-up doorway, sets down the pram, and sits, quiet, just breathing in the light. Two boys ride a bent bicycle, one pedaling, the other holding a flag made from a tea towel, its corners frayed, but proud. They salute the passing postman. He returns it with a nod, the smallest smile breaking through cracked lips. Workers climb scaffold ladders around a bombed library. The building is hollow, but its bones still stand. One man wipes his brow, then reaches into his coat pocket and gently places a letter in the windowsill. A note from his sister, promising better days and a jar of jam when the war is done. A cat, soot-covered but elegant, sits on a stoop, licking its paw, eyeing the pigeons reclaiming rooftops. Down an alley, a girl kneels to sweep shattered glass into a pile. She finds a postage stamp, unused, almost clean. She brushes it off and places it in her pocket, as though it were currency. The postman reaches the final building on his list, a primary school turned aid center. He hands off a bundle of letters, many marked "Return to Sender." But one small envelope, sealed with wax, is placed carefully on the teacher's desk. No one knows who it's for, but they leave it there, just in case.
Afternoon arrives with the soft ticking of clocks and the low hum of life returning to rhythm. The sun, though filtered by lingering haze, casts long golden rays across the rooftops of Bloomsbury and Fitzrovia. The postman crosses a quiet square where pigeons strut in orderly fashion and a busker plucks strings on a cracked violin. The melody is simple, a lullaby carried through the still air like a memory someone forgot they had. At a modest post office near Tavistock Place, a woman in a navy coat sorts through return-to-sender envelopes. Her fingers pause on each name. Many are unreadable now, blurred by rain, war, or time. Some are addressed only to darling, sweetheart, or simply home. The postman hands her a sealed satchel of letters, each marked with faded destinations, names scratched out, destinations bombed flat, senders long moved on. And yet, no one dares discard them. In a nearby cemetery, green shoots burst between moss-covered stones. A groundskeeper moves silently among them, clearing leaves with gloved hands. He finds a letter pinned beneath a broken bench, its ink barely legible, but enough to read the first line. "I never meant to leave without saying goodbye." He folds it, pockets it gently. Further down Gower Street, a widowed seamstress opens her tiny shop for the first time in weeks. The windows are dusty, the mannequins faded, but she wipes them clean with slow circles. A parcel is delivered. Inside, wool, thread, and a short note that simply reads, "For your hands, to keep them busy." The postman makes one final stop this hour, a stone bench beside the British Museum, where he leaves a letter tucked behind the plaque. No address, no stamp, just a drawing of a tulip, and a line beneath it. Some things bloom again, even in dust. Golden hour. That sacred pause between day and dusk when everything glows, even the broken things. Sunlight pours across Soho's uneven brick walls, catching on shattered windows and casting warm halos around forgotten doorways. A church bell rings faintly from the west, its sound diffused by distance, softened by dust. The postman walks slower now, his satchel nearly empty. The world seems quieter in this hour, the clamour of work finished, the waiting for night not yet begun. On Berwick Street, a baker leans against his front door, apron dusted in flour. Inside, shelves are mostly bare, the day's bread already gone, but he offers the postman a crust wrapped in wax paper. "For the road," he says, nodding. "No charge." Around the corner, a young woman in trousers, a factory worker maybe, sits on a stoop, scribbling into a journal. Her cheeks are sunburned, her hands marked with grease. She glances up, only briefly as the postman passes, then returns to her page. A memory, maybe, or a letter to someone who's forgotten how to reply. A corner pub still stands, its windows intact, a rarity these days. Inside, a piano plays itself, the mechanism cracked but still charming. An old couple dances, slow and quiet, in the middle of the room. No one watches, no one speaks. The postman delivers his second-to-last letter at a record shop, the shutters half down. It's addressed to a man who once recorded wartime broadcasts from a cellar beneath the BBC. The shopkeeper takes it without a word and slips it into a wooden drawer marked "Not Yet Collected." Shadows stretch longer. A boy with a red scarf rides a soapbox cart downhill, laughter trailing behind him like a kite tail. The postman pauses and watches. A rare sound, laughter, unscripted and bright. There's beauty in this hour, not the loud kind, the quiet sort, the kind that makes even broken chimneys look proud again, their bricks warmed in the last golden light. Dusk settles like a hush over the rooftops of Clerkenwell. The last of the sunlight slips down chimney stacks and narrow alleys, drawing long shadows across doorsteps still warm from the day. The postman rests on a stoop beneath a flickering gaslight. He removes his cap. The air is cooler now, laced with soot, lavender and chimney smoke, familiar scents of a city refusing to surrender. Inside a corner flat, a girl listens to a wireless radio broadcasting poetry, lines about longing, distance, and skies that never sleep. She closes her eyes, mouthing the words as though they belong to her. Her letter, unfinished,
lies on the windowsill. Just 3 lines written in blue pencil. The rest remains unsaid. Elsewhere, a war widow sits at her dressing table, brushing her hair in silence. A photograph of her husband leans against a bottle of lavender cologne. She picks up a folded letter, one he wrote from Dunkirk, never mailed. She's read it many times, but tonight she reads it again, aloud, to no one, just to feel the room filled.
In a bookbindery on Rosebery Avenue, an old man works by candlelight, sewing pages by hand. He pauses to open a small envelope. Inside is a child's drawing of a bird, signed "For Mr. Blackwell." He pins it to the wall, just above his workbench. The bird looks like it's flying toward the flame. The postman delivers one final note to the newspaper stand outside the train station. It's a reply to a personal ad from months ago. The sender is long gone, but he places it anyway, tucked behind the weather reports. As the sky deepens, a hush returns to the streets.
Lamps glow behind curtains. Letters rest beneath doormats. Cats curl beneath market carts. Nothing moves quickly now. Nothing shouts.
Only the steady quiet of a city still breathing, still remembering. Night folds across London like a worn blanket, heavy, familiar, full of stories held in its creases. A final church bell tolls, once, twice, then stillness. The postman, now nearly home, walks through a narrow path behind Russell's Square. The trees whisper gently in the warm summer air, their leaves catching moonlight like old lace. He has no letters left in his satchel, only one tucked inside his coat. It was never meant for delivery. It's his. A letter written to his wife, lost in the first air raid of the winter. He never sent it, never finished it, but he carries it still. He pauses at a bench carved with ivy leaves, sits. The city hums far off, the clink of milk bottles, the creak of floorboards above, the distant shuffle of footsteps. Life, tucked in its corners, still rustles quietly. He opens the letter and reads it silently. It begins, "My dearest Elsie," but the page remains half empty. He doesn't cry. Not tonight. Just folds it neatly, places it in his lap, and watches as a fox scurries down the alley, brushing past his boots. From a window above, someone begins to sing. Not loudly, just a hum. Something old, almost familiar. He listens. The melody is neither joyous nor sad. It simply is. Across the city, letters lie unopened on nightstands, tucked inside drawers, resting beneath teacups, or framed in hallway nooks. Words that waited. Words that were lost. Words that kept people going when breath alone was not enough.
The postman stands, cap in hand, and walks the final stretch. His home is quiet. A kettle waits on the stove. A single candle glows in the window. As he opens the door, the bell above it jingles softly. And somewhere, not far, not near, a letter that was never delivered finally finds its way home.
Thank you for listening to Letters from the Beyond. If this story brought you peace, consider subscribing and let the next letter find you in stillness.